I've always had a coach from day one. Even in my first business, I started my first business in my early 20s. And it's always just been somebody teaching me how to do things that I didn't know how to do before and move that at a faster pace, because I know people know how to do it better than I do. So I'll always lean into how can I really make this a truncated series of time? How can I truncate time on this particular process or this particular solution? And oftentimes it's because somebody already has the answers. And so that's why I've always leaned into coaching. So I've had a coach and they've required that I be accountable, and then all of my leaders are the same. So for us, our coach meets with each one of our team leads every week. What are the action items? What are your KPIs? How do we get there? And what did you miss and why? So what are the resources you need? It's really about doing what you said you're going to do, and even when it's hard.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today we talk about accountability. We're going to go deeper than we normally do, but we hope you really appreciate this as you prepare your culture and your leadership for next level growth. Our special guest today is the CEO of Dealer Merchant Services, and they were on the Inc. list. They were at 1,701, I think, in 2025. And we have with us Amberly Allen. Amberly and I talk about accountability culture. We dance around all different aspects of this, how she leads her people, what happens when people get out of alignment with accountability, and all of the things in between. So all you have to do is sit back, take notes if you want to increase the level of accountability across your people. My name is Gene Hammett. I'm a CEO coach, founder coach. We do executive coaching, and we also help managers become leaders. We do leadership development at scale with Inc. 5000 companies. In fact, if you are facing some big issue, some way you want to grow, and you're not quite sure what to do next, you're doing all the things you're doing, you're working harder, you're trying to empower people, but it's just not working. You might want to come to the next training we have. And if you go to that, you will learn how to stop being the bottleneck of your company, how to get out of the way, empower your people, hold them accountable. All those things are in that training. All you have to do is sign up for free at training.coreelevation.com. When you come, you will sign up, you will find out a lot of information about the structure at which we do. And when you actually show up, you will find out the details of how we help Inc. 5000 level companies continue their growth on that by having great leadership and the great culture and shifting that leadership operating system. Just go to training.coreelevation.com. Now, here's the interview with Amberly. Hi, Amberly.
Hi, Gene. Thanks so much for having me today.
I am so excited to be here. We're going to have a great time. We're going to talk about accountability culture and what's really grown your business. But let's talk about your business, get to know you and what you guys are up to at Dealer Merchant Services.
Sure. So I founded Dealer Merchant Services a month before COVID, which is always fascinating. I have been in and around the car business since my early 20s. I started my first business in marketing to car dealerships. And I started to hear about the laws changing as it pertains to credit card processing and potentially passing along these fees to their customers. And so I knew that my dealers and my dealer body could benefit in a great way, but there was some specifics on how they could do it. And so I had this idea. I went to some of my marketing clients and said, hey, what do you think about this? And they would give me their feedback, tell me, well, I love the thought of saving money, but not at the detriment of my customers, or not at the detriment of my accounting department, or not at the detriment of legal and compliance. And so I would go back to the drawing board and kind of readjust. And so we had one dealer, one of my marketing clients said, okay, I'll try it at one of my smallest stores. And now we have 1,050 clients across the country.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I have a client in the merchant services, and I know that you picked this market. Like, what are the things, where do you see this market going in about 3 years as it relates to credit card processing?
So it's interesting because as of today, there's 47 states that have legal compliant surcharging. So it's legal to pass along your fees on credit cards only, not on debit cards. And for me, I am hyper-focused on basically everything with an engine. So car and truck dealers, as well as RV, boats, motorcycles, motorsports, anything like that. So anything with an engine is really our focus. And that really gives them an opportunity to recoup one of their top 10 expenses. And with that, we can help them do it, but we are training all of their staff. We're training their accounting. We're training everybody. So it is very much a white glove rollout. So it doesn't exhaust their own resources within the business. But where I see it going is just on the new car retail side, we have 1,050 clients. I anticipate having 2,500 clients over the next 2 to 3 years. And that is only a small portion of the retail new car dealership world. And so there's about 16,500 new car dealers, about 3,600 heavy trucking dealers. So needless to say, there's a huge opportunity ahead of us.
Well, thanks for being here, Amberly. I'm excited to talk to you about kind of the inner workings of the company, because we don't really talk about the services and products of our clients. We look at leadership and culture.
Sure.
We always curate who we bring on this. So we get pitched about 40 times a week or day sometimes on being on the show. And what I wanted to kind of direct you through this is like, when you think about your journey to growing this business, making the Inc. list, and it's incredibly, short term for you since you started right after COVID. What are the core leadership principles that drive your success?
Well, I would tell you for us, this business is entirely bootstrapped. So there is no outside funding that we've taken. So it's important to know that I believe that is the foundation of our culture. So I started it on a dime, and we really took it one step at a time on how do we make sure we are the leanest and most efficient. And with that, it's because we had to be. We didn't have a choice. And so I believe that for us, we run the way that we talk about, we run at the speed of business. And our clients also, as car dealership personnel, they run at a very fast pace as well. And so we oftentimes hire people that come from the car business because there's not only a certain vernacular that they bring with them when they work for us, but there's also a speed in the way that they execute. They know that they have to run fast. If you meet a car dealer and he's an owner, he probably has worked 6 days a week most of his life. And they work a lot of hours. They run their people to run very efficiently. And we do the same. And they expect that same sort of culture out of their vendor partners, making sure that we run very, very fast and efficient. And so being lean is simply because we're a startup in super growth mode, and making sure that we were not sure in the very beginning if dealers would adopt a surcharge strategy. We had to really create the space, and dealers in general weren't doing it before we created that.
Well, those are big purchases too, so it makes sense for them to pay attention.
Yeah, exactly.
When you think about the people of your company, I know one of the things that is just the accountability culture. I know what everyone thinks. They understand what accountability is, but I'd love for your definition of accountability.
Sure. So similar to you being successful in your own business is that you hold your clients accountable because they've made promises to themselves, to their team, to their vision. And oftentimes it's really about making sure that they continue to execute those on a regular cadence. It's not something you do one time that makes a difference. It's the consistency of it that really makes things exponentially grow. And that's what's happened here, is that I've always had a coach from day one. Even in my first business, I started my first business in my early 20s. And it's always just been somebody teaching me how to do things that I didn't know how to do before, and move that at a faster pace, because I know people know how to do it better than I do. So I'll always lean into how can I really make this a truncated series of time? How can I truncate time on this particular process or this particular solution? And oftentimes it's because somebody already has the answers. And so that's why I've always leaned into coaching. So I've had a coach, and they've required that I be accountable. And then all of my leaders are the same. So for us, our coach meets with each one of our team leads every week. What are the action items? What are your KPIs? How do we get there? And what did you miss and why? So what are the resources you need? It's really about doing what you said you're going to do. And even when it's hard.
I want to be very clear, everyone listening in here, I'm not Amberly's coach. She has find her own coach, but I didn't even know it until you got here. But I do want to ask you one kind of follow-up question behind this.
Please, sure.
A lot of people go, you know what? I don't have time for coaching right now. I try to say it in my words, but I'm kind of curious, when coaching gives you speed, or would you frame it differently?
Well, first of all, I want to double down. You're right. Not until, we started having a conversation did we both know that we were in alignment as it pertains to coaching? So for me, I would tell you that of course you don't have time for coaching. Of course you don't, but you also don't have time not to do it. So that's the tricky part. If you don't make the time, that means you're working in the business and not on the business. And that's where the problem lies, is that yes, it is very difficult to carve out the time to solve the problems that are going to move you forward. But if you don't, then you won't be moving forward even at all, or definitely not at the pace that you want. So I think it's very important because it's made such an impact in my life. So I can only speak for myself in that regard. But of course, you don't have time. You have to make the time because it's absolutely vital that you do it, because it forces you to work on the strategy. And you won't do that if you're putting out fires.
Now, Amberly just gave her take on you don't have time for coaching. A lot of people say that to me. And I want to give you my take on it. There's a lot of reasons and power of coaching. One of them is accountability. One of them is insight. One of them is helping you reframe things. There's so many elements to it. I think that coaching gives you speed. Here's the one case behind this. If you're 70% sure, maybe even 80% sure of what to do next, you're going to act with a little bit of caution. But in those times when you're 100% sure, that's the next step. You put your head down and are able to get the work done. The problem is people don't get to 100% all the time. They stay stuck in that 70, 80%, and that causes doubt. That causes rework or inner conflict, you name it. Coaching actually helps you with overwhelm, helps you speed up. I see this all the time. In fact, one of the biggest benefits of coaches with my clients is they used to spend a lot of time doing things that they shouldn't be doing, and then they get their time back and they spend time on the more valuable things, which is very important, but they also have more time to think, more white space, if you will. So I share that with you. Coaching actually gives you time. Back to Amberly. Well said. Amberly, we got here talking about accountability culture, and I'm curious, if we were scanning across your company or sitting in meetings or sitting in like all hands or whatever it may be, what would be the most powerful elements of accountability that we would notice?
So I would tell you the fish stinks from the head down. And what that means is that if I am the one in the minutia, me as the leader, as the visionary, and I also, my division is really sales and marketing. And so I'm responsible for revenue generating activity, and I'm responsible for imparting my vision in my team's brain all day, every day. And if I'm not doing those first two things, those first critical things every single day, then I'm not doing my job. But I assure you, there are many times where I want to be in the minutia because it feels easier or more fun. And so for me, my favorite thing to do is be on sales calls. But if I'm on a tiny sales call as opposed to working on an enterprise client, am I doing my company a good service? No. And so that's the accountability. It's not that I think anybody's not doing their job. Everybody's doing their job. Everybody is pulling on the rope in the same direction. What's important is, are you doing the job that moves the company forward? Meaning, my business partner, for example, when she first started coaching, she didn't have, again, this is not about coaching, this is about accountability, but those two things are the same in the fact that we joke, we said, we're going to have to pry this one thing out of your cold, dead hands. But if you continue to do this one thing, we are not moving the business forward. And so you need to be able to task your staff and trust them to give them the autonomy to run this particular thing without you. Otherwise, you're stuck there. And we as a company get stuck if we aren't knowing what somebody else can do for us as opposed to us being in the day-to-day. Yes, in the beginning as a founder, you're taking out the trash. You're doing all the calls. You're doing the books. You're doing everything. But you have to peel off those things that are in your drudgery zone that pull down your energy. You have to peel off those things that you're not best at. I mean, I assure you, nobody's putting me in HR and accounting calls, okay? But I'm not to say that in the beginning I had to be a part of those conversations. Now it's really about what are the things I need to know at a high level. To me, that's accountability. Is how do I delegate this? That to me is the accountability piece more than anything.
When I'm coaching a lot of leaders, they sometimes struggle with this holding people accountable.
Sure.
And ideally, we don't have to hold anyone accountable. They take a sense of ownership around what their job is, what the goals are, what the KPIs are. But every once in a while, you've got to go and ask someone, did you do the work? Is it up to our standards? Or, whatever that may be. Sure. And sometimes they fall short.
Of course.
How do you address that across the culture? Like, what's the norms when someone's falling short on their accountability?
Well, for us, we talk about loving people up or loving people out. So you love them up or you love them out. And what I mean by that is have we communicated to them in the best way possible what our expectations are? Because that's the first part. Like if we haven't communicated that, then we have to be understanding what it is that we're trying to convey. We can't just assume that they can read our minds, but trying to break this down. Like, I obviously haven't communicated my expectations here. So let me reiterate that I want this, this, and this on a weekly basis, or I need this, this, and this on a daily basis, whatever that looks like. And we're all moving at breakneck speed. So slowing down enough. Some of it is in the hiring process, making sure that people want to run at that pace. Not everybody does. So let's start there. But I would say that if you have to course correct them, you want to make sure, what are my expectations? How can I really inspect what I expect there? And then if they just aren't the right fit, you got to love them out.
Yeah. We use a different phrase here, coach them up or coach them out.
Okay.
But the love thing works too.
Sure.
Some people get triggered by love in the workplace. I have no problem with it. I think it's great because employees are such a valuable resource inside this. We want them to feel appreciated and heard.
Sure.
And I appreciate your perspective on this. The accountability culture.
Mm-hmm.
Some companies are using scorecards or some type of KPI metrics. They're putting them on television screens. Would we see any of that stuff in your offices?
I'm not following anybody's mouse to make sure that they're working. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I employ adults, and if you want to work and you want to be an adult, if you need to go to a doctor's appointment, make sure that your stuff is handled. Let us know and handle your business as an adult. I mean, I am not going to watch your mouse to make sure that you're actually in front of your computer. That's bananas to me.
Yeah, I totally agree. Who has time for that, right? That's micromanagement, by the way.
Because if you are under the impression that they're not doing their job, they're probably not doing their job. So
very, very wisely said, Amberly. I had a question in here, and I just want to go a little bit deeper with this. Like, a lot of people, new managers, have this like barrier toward accountability. They're really afraid to engage and ask questions. I would imagine through the training you guys get and you holding those managers accountable, that is not something that is really a part of your culture. How do you guys address that when a manager's like, I don't really like going back and asking them, did they get their work done?
Well, I think that management is not easy, and it's not for everyone. And the fact that they think that it's always going to be adversarial. But I think if you can frame it differently, and you mentioned this earlier in our beginning conversations, it's really all about the reframe, is that you got to get back to the core of what it is that they want. I mean, why do you want to work here? Why do you like working here? What it is that you want to gain in your career? Because for me, a huge benefit that my employees know is that when they start with us and maybe they're hired for a particular position, the cool thing about working for a company our size is that maybe we see their strengths lie in a different area. And I can tell you that I've had at least 20 of my staff start in one position. We see their strengths. We want them to soar with their strengths. And therefore, we put them into a different spot, a different seat on the bus, as we refer to it. And we always are looking to our staff going, okay, this is the seat you're in, but maybe where do you want to be in the future? And so that they're constantly looking at an opportunity to go, well, so you're telling me I have management position, or I can move up in leadership. And, even if they told me they were gunning for my job, I'd be excited about it, because that means that they've got a future vision for themselves within our organization.
Amberly mentioned reframe. Now, this is a technique inside of coaching that we help people see what they don't see for themselves. I'm going to give you 2 examples of a reframe just so you have context around this. One of them is kind of a cliche out there. Jim Carrey, in a commencement speech, once said, "I don't know if it's true, but I believe it is for me, that life happens for me or to me." Now, how does that fit into reframing? Well, when you think about whatever you're facing right now, you might be thinking about the pain of it, the struggle, or blaming someone else. I ask my clients to say, instead of looking at why this is happening to you, look at it from the perspective of how is it happening for you? 99 times out of 100. I reserve that there's a fraction of time that it's not, but most of the time, 99 times out of 100, that they can see that life happens for them. And that is an example of reframe, is when they can focus on that. Another simple one that comes up quite often inside CEO coaching is the fact that they're always focused on what's not done. And if you focus on what's not done, I get it. You get a little bit stressed. You get a little bit overwhelmed, anxiety sometimes. But when you are able to shift to gratitude, when you're able to look at how far you've come, it is a really incredible thing for you to be able to connect to the gratitude of this. I'm not saying you don't have high standards and you want to get to all the things that you want done, but you're able to express it not with impatience, but gratitude for all of the things that you have done with your team. And then you can sit back and say, and then the next thing we're going to do is X or Y. And that is a reframe that will help you be a better leader and coach up your people. Back to Amberly. One of the core elements that makes you guys perform at the level you do is high expectations.
Sure.
I know that you probably have high expectations for yourself.
I do.
Hopefully your executive team has similar high expectations and it trickles down throughout the organization.
Yep.
What have you learned about high expectations that might help other leaders bring that back into their culture?
So it's really cool for me as an entrepreneur. I started as a young entrepreneur in my early 20s. I am 45 years old. I have 2 kids. I'm a single parent. And I definitely have very high expectations of myself. But what's interesting is that in this period of time that I have been growing, what I have dubbed is the business of my dreams, because we've all had up to bats that haven't been as successful as entrepreneurs. If you're really dedicated to being an entrepreneur, some of them, are swings and misses. But this one is a swing and a grand slam, which is incredibly exciting. I tell people I'm going to ride this bull till it bucks me off. But with that being said, I do have high expectations of myself, but I've also realized that I have another gear. That means that I can get a little bit better every day. And I also know that if somebody like my personal coach, we have conversations of, okay, what are the 3 critical things that you have to do every day that if you get taken out to sea, you're always going to make sure these get done. Some of those are personal. So I anchor every day with meditation. Some people anchor with working out or prayer, whatever. For me, it's meditation. It has to happen before my children wake up. Otherwise, we're really all in trouble. But I am very deliberate in the way that I set my personal tone every day. And I would tell you that is probably the keystone to just being able to roll with the punches. And I communicate a lot of that with my team. Where is your anchor? What are you doing every day to fill your cup? You can't give from an empty cup. So we talk about those things. We have some cool things within our culture that we like on Fridays. We do book club, or we ask personal questions, and not, anything invasive like what's your favorite ice cream or what's your favorite karaoke song. But because half of our team is remote, gives us an opportunity to bond.
Amberly, we've been having a great conversation about accountability culture, growing your business fast. Have we left anything out that you think is really important for others to know about your leadership style?
So I believe in giving people the autonomy to make decisions. I don't want to be the one that they come to for all the solutions. I want them to come to me and go, I've got this problem. Here are the solutions that I think are appropriate, whether it be 1 or 2, sometimes multiple. Sometimes it's, hi, I have a problem and I think this person needs to be terminated. Or I have a problem, I think this person needs to be coached in this way, but I think they've got great potential. Or maybe they're in the wrong seat on the bus. Or we have a strategy problem or a marketing problem. Every day you're riddled with questions and solutions. I think the biggest thing is that I don't want to be the only one that they look to for the problem solving. I want them to look to themselves or their team. And I would tell you that is where, the team feels confident in that. So when they get to bring, potential solutions, and then you go, I love that decision. I love that solution. Let's go with that. They go, oh, okay. They hold their shoulders back a little higher and they feel like they have autonomy to be a better leader. And I think that is what serves us in a big way. We expect them to be adults, but we expect them to grow. We've made big promises to them as well. And I intend to keep them, but not if they're not willing to come with their A game every day.
Amberly, we've had a great conversation about the leadership and culture that drive dealer merchant services to the level you're at. I appreciate you being here and sharing that wisdom.
Yeah, thank you. What an absolute privilege.
Wow, Amberly's been talking about accountability, and it's such a great episode. This accountability culture is something that I believe should be instilled across our organizations. You want to make sure that people are making promises to what they're going to do, documenting those, and you hold them accountable. It's that simple. Well, we also know it's not that simple. When you are in a leader, you will have people that get out of alignment. You will have people that aren't doing what they said they would do. And your job is to make sure you have those conversations around it. I'm not telling you to buy our book, How to Have Tough Conversations, but it does help you give feedback and find alignment and rebuild trust when it needs to. So you can buy that anywhere you buy books online. And that's my take today. Great to have Amberly on the show. When you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.